Hello there and welcome to the Drax Files Radio Hour with Joe Yardley. My name is Drax Dupree. Joe is on the show today. Can you believe it? It's unbelievable. Let me see if is the sound good? Yeah, the sound is good. Sorry. It's such a rush. I'm in the middle of editing raw material from a upcoming documentary called Our Digital Selves. And today we talk about kind of a related topic, which is avatar representation and what it means to our physical identity. What is the avatar? How important is the avatar? So that's the subject of my film, which is coming in spring next year. Won't commit to a date just yet. But Mile Freschi, who is on the show today, will talk about a survey that she has conducted for her studies. She is a PhD candidate at the University of Maine. People may know her from the Four Bridges Project in Second Life. Mile Freschi is Amy Cross in real life, and she has done a survey. She has surveyed, I think, 750 avatars so far have responded about a quite an in-depth survey about the avatar and what the avatar means to them, and what is the difference between the avatar and their real life self in terms of outgoing, extrovert versus introvert, gender, ethnicity, and all that stuff. Is super interesting. It's 47 questions. We're going to go through them and we're going to find out what Mile has found out so far, and she's still continuing. She wants to have over 1,000 participants to have a real sophisticated data set. So that's on the show today, all about avatars. Last week, you enjoyed Philip Rosedale's talk that we did live on stage. I got some good feedback, but I also got some weird feedback that people clicked on the video that was filmed by Michelle Leckrone. Thanks to Michelle, she streamed the in-world portion. We, of course, were in the physical world. And I edited audio that I got from Michelle for the podcast, and it turns out that some people, they go to draxfiles.com, then they go to the URL of the new show, and instead of listening to the podcast, they click on the video, which makes very little sense to me. The videos that are embedded on the site are complementary material of the podcast. The podcast is, if you will, the main product, and you can also, of course, you can listen via the website. I don't care, but I would find it much more convenient to, for example, listen through an app that kind of curates shows like Stitcher or iTunes, because you can subscribe to them and you have them on your phone, or you have them neatly updated through the feed, and then you can listen to them while you do other things, hang out in Second Life or work or whatever. Anyway, please support the show by a voluntary subscription or a corporate sponsorship, and you get your banner displayed on the website, and we mention your name in the credits. So, without any further ado, I want to roll tape. This is a pre-recorded show with Mile Freschi and Joe Yardley. So I'll have Mile. Before we introduce Mile, since I haven't spoken to Joe in a long time, I want to briefly check in with Joe, because she had a Patreon campaign, a GoFundMe campaign to get her a new gaming computer. First world problems. No, but it's serious, because Joe is actually doing this as a business, as the landlord of 1920s Berlin, and she was not able to run it reliably. The machine died, and she had no voice on this one machine, which is why she didn't participate in the podcast for so long. One of the main reasons. Here's Joe from the pre-recorded tape about her experience using GoFundMe.
Well, for the last year, or maybe even longer, I've been running Second Life and 1920s Berlin and Time Portal on a really bad old computer that didn't do very well. And I was saving up for a new one, and after about a year I had about €4, so that wasn't going very well. And I'm a bit old-fashioned, and I have a lot of pride and all that nonsense, so I felt really uncomfortable about asking people for donations and things like that, because, I'm already getting tips and things like that.
You're really old-fashioned, but that does not include talking about like a graphics card that costs like $1,000.
So I thought, all right, I might as well do it. And there were people in Berlin who kept saying to me, just go and do it. You need a new computer, and when you get a new computer, it's good for us as well. So just go and do it. So I did, and within a couple of days I had enough money to buy a really new, really super duper computer that should also be able to run Samsar, and it's on order.
Great. And so this is an ongoing discussion about people. You know, people say I can't continue to play with this stuff because I don't have the machine. Now, I don't want to talk about Sansar because Sansar really is at a point where you do need a very powerful machine still. But Second Life really, we say this so many times, but Second Life actually runs really well on a modest machine.
Yeah, of course, but it sort of depends if you want what you want out of Second Life. If you want, if you get a desktop, you can get one for a couple of $100 that works really well, and that can get you a Second Life experience that is really good. But if you want to experience Second Life the way you should, the way it's meant to be experienced, you're already getting a little bit more expensive. Now, I need to make really good looking pictures of Second Life, not just for fun or a hobby, but, because to sell my sim, to get people to visit the sim and all that. And if I want to take a picture in my sim right now with shadows, I can turn the graphic settings on my laptop to maximum, and then I can go make dinner and have dinner, and then have cake, and then come back, and then maybe 80% of everything has loaded.
And 3 frames, and the Zeppelin over Berlin has jumped,
exploded. So that's no good. And I'm one of those people that just keeps working till things start breaking down and limbs start falling off. So
it's cool. Because then you can actually check in with Sansar perhaps and kind of like find out how feasible is it to get started maybe doing a Berlin version in there. I have to say I got some interesting hate IMs like that. I don't do anything in Second Life anymore, which is bizarre because, like I said earlier, I'm working on this most ambitious.
You traitor.
It is getting more fragmented, and it is a little bit stressful. That is definitely true.
Well, you've got 3 lives now.
Yeah, but I'm really cutting down on. I'm not going into VR chat anymore.
Oh, you have 4 lives.
I was so happy when Altspace folded. Like, I don't even have to go in there. No, but I'm not getting tired of SHITTing on Altspace. Unless they show me something really compelling other than these ridiculous robotic avatars, then we can talk. I know people have that same thing about Sansar, but if you have watched the Halloween special streaming, you can see
getting there. Yeah.
Sansar is at the beginning, but people are so creative, they just put stuff on their heads to customize their avatars. They use attachments that's really mirroring
real life.
Right, because you need a mask when you rob a bank. That goes without saying.
I always wear a mask when I rob a bank. But,
Joe, this goes totally off a tangent, and we got to bring in our special guest. But as we now learned, you grew up in a criminal neighborhood, and I grew up in a ghetto with migrant criminals, according to Bavarian public radio. But I didn't know that when I was growing up.
I did. I enjoyed every minute of it.
Yeah, because you were running the local gang.
Yeah.
So talking about avatars and that creativity, again, we're actually going to do some more streaming from Sansar, but there's tons of awesome Halloween things going on in Second Life. Would like to introduce our special guest today. Already mentioned her at the top of the hour, Mile Fresky. And again, hopefully she corrects me with the name. She's behind a really fascinating survey, and we want to know more about it. That's the Four Bridges Project, the Second Life survey with almost 50 questions that really go in depth about the avatar. So hello, Mile, and thank you for joining us today.
Hi, and thanks for having me on. I'm excited to talk about my work.
This is really fascinating, and it's a real interesting convergence, if you will, because I'm working on this documentary where it's a similar subject matter with a different approach. But what if you could tell us what was behind this survey, how did you come up with these questions? Now, these questions range about basic stuff like how long do you spend in Second Life? What do you do in Second Life? But then it really goes in depth, like how many avatars do you have? What is the difference between, or how would you describe your avatar's kind of personality vis-a-vis your real life personality? I mean, how did you come up with this? And God, why? Why, Mile? Why is it important that people need to know what the personality of their non-existent Barbies and Kens are?
Well, because I was curious, frankly. No, I joined Second Life in 2007, and I was a physics major, and I got so enthralled by our avatars and how we related to them. And so, and then I got involved with Four Bridges and totally wiped physics right out of my mind. Mostly I decided I probably wasn't going to be able to be an astronaut at 60. So I started exploring it, and I looked at how virtual technology, for my master's degree, I looked at how virtual technology affects us in education. And the more I got involved with that, and the more I used it in my classes, not only as a student, but as an instructor, I started realizing that, our avatars they do have a change. They do create change in our offline identities. And of course, Tom's work and Nikki's work.
Tom Bölsdorf, who is the primary investigator for the project I'm working on, and Nick Yee, who wrote a lot about also, I think, the aspect that we all want to play Barbie and Ken, if that's valid or not. I mean, why is that? Sorry to cut you off, Mile, real quick. Joe, did you do this survey?
Yes, I did. I love surveys.
Before we go on with Mile, I want to know from you, Joe, I mean, is your avatar more obnoxious than you in real life, or is it kind of the same?
She is slightly more aggressive. I mean, I don't have a gun in real life, not allowed. But, in Second Life, no problem. Mm-hmm. No, I'm pretty much the same, except in Second Life I smoke more and I drink more. But that is about it, and that's only because I'm too lazy in real life to go buying drinks and cigarettes all the time.
But you're also more forceful, I guess. I mean, I'm going to ask Mile, because for me, going through the survey, this is the most fascinating aspect, is the difference and then how it reverberates. But some people are so the same. Like in my case, I would say I have pretty much the same personality, but other people would say like there's this wall between these two lives, and I separate it for many reasons, not only privacy, but also really kind of the personality. So Joe, you're more you said it. I mean, you're more aggressive. Is that because you have does that have to do with your role?
Yeah, I mean, I run a bar in Weimar Republic, Berlin. I mean, we've got drunks and prostitutes and pimps and police officers, and they all come to my place for a drink. And if you just put a tip jar on the table, you get nothing. So I have to sometimes force people to give me money. But it goes with where I live. With the surroundings, it's a certain role that just automatically gets bestowed upon you as you live there. When you can't just be, in Amsterdam. I live in a pretty rough neighborhood, but I spend most of my time indoors, so it's the confrontations there are a lot less. But I know if I need to fight in real life, I'll do it as well, and it's a little bit trickier there. So who knows? I think I'm very, very, very similar, probably more than most people in Second Life, to my avatar. It's just a different time and place.
People can still take the survey. It's about 750 people. You want to get over 1,000, but is that something you found, that people are roughly the same, or where are you with the looking at this data? Is there like a percentage? Is there a weighing yet that you can see? Are people mostly the same, or are people completely different?
What I found is, because, I do offer some opportunity for responses so they can tell me in what ways they feel they're the same and in what ways they feel they're different.
Right. We should say it's not just like not just a check mark. You do have boxes where people can describe more in depth what they do and how they come to that answer, yes or no, which I think is great. I hate these polls with these 3 multiple choices or like a slider.
And that's what I tried to do with this, was give the basics because a lot of people do want to go in and take a survey and just check a box. And so I was hoping to be accommodating to how people like to take surveys. This one was really interesting because what I've been doing is kind of going in and coding them to see how people respond in those comment sections. And what I found on this particular question, does your main avatar's personality reflect your offline personality? 75% said yes. It's a reflection, and their personality, ethical, and moral values are basically the same. But when those who answered no or made comments, the no's were gender. A lot of people play a different gender. Just about the number one response was they're more outgoing in Second Life than they are in their real life. And they act differently based on their personal appearance. So people who aren't as confident with their personal appearance in real life obviously aren't going to be as outgoing, aren't going to be as, willing to put themselves out there as those who are more comfortable with their physical appearance. So those weren't unexpected results as far as I was concerned based on my previous research.
What was the most surprising result in that arena?
I was surprised because I asked, do you see your main avatar as an extension of yourself? And then the next question was, do you see your main avatar as a separate identity? And on that one, do you see as an extension? Most people said yes. 84% said yes, they see it as an extension. But the most interesting response from that I got, that a couple of people said, was along the lines of, I now see myself as an extension of my avatar. That one spoke to me in particular because I have changed so much because of my avatar and my offline personality that, sometimes I think maybe I'm more Malay than I am Amy now. So that was an interesting one. And then there are a lot of surprises to me in this, the number of avatars people have. I assumed everyone was like me and I have more than 6 avatars. Oh. And, most people have one avatar. One avatar. How do you exist with one avatar?
I exist, and I think Joe exists too. I think I know Joe has an alt who plays the piano really well. I know that.
I have about 78 avatars.
Okay, see, that's more in line.
just joking. I have more than one, but there I have a few because when you run a community like this, sometimes you need to be able to admin.
But Joe, wait a minute. We need to make very clear. Are we talking about alts, or are we talking about changing your avatar on your main account?
Alts. There's only me, who is me, and I have a couple of avatars that I use, for instance, for testing things. If your rent box is installed properly, because you don't want to bother your tenants, but also because sometimes you have an event that your avatar really doesn't belong. Because for instance, if there's a nudist bathing party at the swimming pool, I'm not going to go there. I'm not going to get nude. I'm not a perv. So I have to send an alt just to make sure nobody breaks the rules. But yeah, it's just I've really only got one real avatar, and the few extras are not really to try different things or to be someone else, but they're just because they're necessary.
But so Mile, is that what you found? Were you talking about alts, or were you talking about like you have like a couple hundred in the inventory, or you have 6 in the inventory?
No, the alts.
Because that is fascinating to me, and Sargent, I really want your opinion on this. What I talked with people prior many times about this, and I do have alts, and they're primarily for filming also different roles when we reenact certain things, so I need some extra actors. I do have 2 clones of Draxter when I film Draxter, and I don't want to be in there because I don't want to be bothered by people when I'm working. it's a really weird feeling. I don't feel attached to these alts, although they look like me. You see what I'm saying? Like they feel like puppets, really. And I don't have strong memories when I do stuff with them. And they're really kind of like hammer and nail, while the main Dragster, that's me.
Right. And that's, in the responses that I got, the word puppet comes up a lot with people who are using alts. It's like a puppet or it's a storage, for inventory or whatever. But there are quite a few, myself included. I have an alt that, I use because, like Joe, I run the Four Bridges project, and so Malay wants to take a break. I want to go and look at different art and go to concerts and do that sort of thing with the privacy, number one, and without being attached to Four Bridges. I mean, if I want to go, just as an example, I really wanted to understand BDSM and the Gorean community. And, I went in as an alt, as an observer, so I could see, for me, you have to, if you're going to make a grand statement about a particular lifestyle somebody chooses, then, you should take the time to try and understand it a little bit. And I talked to some people in there, both male and female, to try and get perspective. I did not want to do that as Malay, because I've got this huge Amnesty International tag on me, because I'm their virtual war coordinator. So it put me in an awkward position, but I still felt the need to go in and explore that. And I am attached to I have two alts that I'm kind of attached to that I use for different things, but not at all to the extent that I'm attached to Malay. So I think it's in varying degrees with people. That's what I'm finding in any case.
That's amazing, and that is something that people on the outside often don't understand. What you're just describing, that even going into communities where you're just curious, like what's going on in there. It's an incredibly great opportunity to safely explore places where it might be. Unless you're, what's the name of the BBC documentarian, Louis Theroux? You go with a team into he did a story about a brothel somewhere in the desert in the U.S., which was a fascinating
in Nevada,
document.
right?
Nevada, that's right. So he goes in there, and I would love to do that. Not this particular brothel. I'm not saying like because I want to live in a brothel.
Right.
I'm saying I want to be Louis Theroux in my third life. Anyway, going off a tangent, but that's something that we all know is so incredibly powerful, that we can explore these different communities in Second Life.
And one of the questions I asked was, are there activities that any of your avatars participate in that have influenced your offline primary relationships? And, I kind of, if I saw the answer there more than 3 or 4 times, I wrote it down. And one of them is they're much more patient, understanding, and more willing to explore diversity, different cultures, get a different understanding of people, and that's carried over into their offline lives. In today's time, I think that is ever so important. Isn't that excellent? I loved that. I really loved that.
However, I hope that you get a lot of publicity with these findings and write a wonderful report on this, because this is so important to bring this across. But I want to ask Joe here also if you think that Second Life has this opportunity. I have mixed feelings about that. I'm at the point where I believe that the online communities as a whole kind of amplify what we already are, and if we take this opportunity, there's a huge opportunity to grow with all sorts of different communities. But if I look at the facts and if I look at the current state of the world, I think we're maybe not mature enough as a species to really take advantage of that. I'm obviously referring to the siloing on Facebook and Twitter and just sort of devolving into middle school kids yelling at each other without any sort of calm patience and substance of debate. I would also argue that in Second Life it's much more possible to grow like that. But I don't know if it's a foregone conclusion that everybody will grow, right? You see what I'm saying? People can also choose to just like hang out at the welcome area and yell at people all day long, or become griefers.
Yeah, of course. And you know, I can only speak for myself.
Who have you become, Joe?
I'm exactly the same as I was 10 years ago. I don't change. I did all my changing years ago. I'm done. Although I'm going to be a farmer next, which is interesting in real life. But, you know, I can only speak for myself, and I know that when I joined Second Life, and for instance, the first time you meet a child avatar and you realize that that is a grown-up in real life, and, you know, the first time you meet a furry, I was extremely prejudiced, going, all right, these people are nuts. And of course they are nuts because, you know, we're all nuts. But then you meet one who is, and you start talking to them, or they become your friend, or they come to your sim, or you know, someone comes to 920 Berlin and moves there and becomes a friend, and then you realize or learn that they're also a furry in another sim, and you think, wow, okay, this is actually okay. And you know, this is just how it works in real life. You know, you see a group of people that you don't understand, and you think, oh, a bit weird and strange, and then you get to meet one of them, and that sort of destroys everything you think. That's the way social media works. That's the way you know, virtual reality works. Reality works. You need the more people you meet, the more difficult it becomes to remain prejudiced. So, yeah,
but the question is here. But the interesting question is, we have this opportunity, but some people don't take it. You see what I'm saying? Like, we could go and we could grow if we wanted to. We could expose ourselves to these other communities even by accident. But some people choose to silo themselves off.
I am one of those people, but it still happens by accident.
That's right. You do silo yourself off, but every once in a while a furry...
I'm living in the 1930s in real life. I have no social interaction with anyone if I can help it. I hate people, all of them equally. In Second Life, I'm doing exactly the same, but, you know, people come to you and you start to meet them, and if I go walk my dog, I meet other dog owners who are completely weird and strange, and that's how it works. That's just how it works.
Mile, I want to ask you, is Jo an outlier in her antisocial behavior, or did you find people who would say, you know, I actually enjoy solitary life also in Second Life? I mean, you know, you don't have to go in there in order to meet people. Some people may go in there to actually have some solace and some quiet time.
Well, I asked two questions. I asked how they would define or describe their main avatar's personality in SL, and then their offline personality. And for outgoing, 30% of humans, of the users, said they were outgoing, compared to 55% who are outgoing with their avatar. Now, as far as the introversion, let's see, 26% say their avatar is introverted, compared to 50% who say their human is more introverted. So it looks like those who are introverted as humans, as users, fewer of them are introverted in Second Life. So I wouldn't call it an outlier, because, you know, almost 30% have said that they're introverted in Second Life. So it's not an outlier, but it's definitely different.
I meet a lot of people who really, they enjoy logging in and just being alone in a beautiful sim that is usually a nature type sim. They like to just be there and look at...
I've got a watermill. I've got a watermill in a skybox, high, far away from everyone. A little watermill in the middle of the woods, where I go sometimes, which is quite relaxing.
Yeah,
but never too long.
And being in Maine by February or March, wherever I am, I usually have private. I pay rent for a little private piece that I block everybody else out, and I have my chairs, my fireplace, my beach, and my lighthouse. And that's where I go when I'm working on my dissertation or whatever I happen to be doing for schoolwork and need that outside alone time. But most people are in there for socializing, like almost 70% are in there to socialize. So, which makes sense, because that's where virtual reality, that's where we shine, is that we can socialize with many people at the same time.
Yeah, but it's nonetheless, I find it fascinating that it provides everything, because I actually I mentioned this friend of mine a couple of times who is fascinated by Second Life, but who is really anxious to go in because he feels that there is an obligation to socially interact. Okay, so here's someone who has a considerable amount of social anxiety in the real world, and he just wants to maybe do it at his own pace. And I keep saying, this is the perfect place to do it at your own pace. If you want to, just don't go to the welcome area right away.
Right.
If you avoid that, then you're fine. You could, like you were saying, also.
You should never go there. Ever.
Well, I think also for social scientists, it would actually be really interesting to go there every day.
Yeah, no.
I've gone there a lot through the research, and sometimes, like the other night, since I've been laid up, I can't do work on my dissertation. So I watched I can't remember the name of the documentary, but it was a Second Life documentary, and I saw them put it up on their TV, and I thought, oh, I can do that. And what I liked about it, remember when you were brand new in there, that feeling like the first 6 or 8 months where it's like, 40 hours a week and you're just totally. So I wanted to experience a little bit of that again. So I went to the welcome area, and there was a newbie there, and she was, she's 24, and she was yelling out at the welcome center, "I don't know what to do here," all caps.
and then
so,
what?
So I took her, I took her to 20s Berlin, but she didn't know how to change her clothes. So.
And then Joe came and threw her out.
But she was excited to see that. We went to Paris, and we went to some of my favorite places, of course, Brno. I love her work. And, so I showed her some things, and we talked about it. And I left after, 3 hours. I left, and she was going to stay in there. And when I went in the next day and saw her, she was still in there. So she didn't leave. But, and I wonder about the Welcome Center, if you go in there as a noob, are they getting the same kind of experience that I did? My first place was Welfare Island. I went to Welfare Island first and fell in love with it. I thought it was excellent. I loved the dumpsters, and and everybody was giving you stuff, and the griefing and all of that. So it is interesting to me. One of the things I did want to bring up as far as all that is concerned, most of the people, 40% of the people that responded to this survey have been in 10 years or longer. And only a very small, less than 15% of the respondents have been in there less than 6 years. So, I think as far as understanding the capabilities for learning about different cultures and exploring relationships and that sort of thing comes after you've been in there for a while. That's my feeling anyway. I think that when you first go in, you're like that woman standing at the Welcome Center saying, "What the hell do I do here?" So the longer you're in and the more accustomed you become to your avatar and the more engaged, then, the more likely you are to expand your understanding of the different cultures that are in there.
I'm going over the raw material of the feature documentary about avatars and people with disabilities. Our Digital Selves is the working title. And today I was editing interview footage from that I did with Shyla, the super gecko who lives in the Chicago area in real life. And we were talking about activism. Now, you, Milay, the Four Bridges, I forgot to mention it earlier. Four Bridges, I'm reading the statement of the website. Your group is a virtual sustainable global community model founded on the 4 principles of respect for nature, universal human rights, economic and social justice, and a culture of peace. Now, you've been on the nonprofit archipelago. You're an activist, and you're trying to activate people. What have you found? Because I don't know. I mean, the verdict is out. I don't know. You know, I have my own anecdotal stories about working with activists and nonprofits, but Shyla was saying in that interview that she's enthusiastic about the possibilities, but at the same time, she feels it's very hard to activate people in Second Life and to reverberate this activism outward into action, even maybe into a phone call or some sort of specific action. What's your take on this? Not only with the survey, I know you're asking this also in the survey. You know, are you part of a group or are you active in sort of social justice work? But what would you say to that? What's your findings over the years?
The thing about Four Bridges, you know, because I wasn't an activist before I joined Four Bridges, and I found out about child soldiering through Amnesty, and you know, I couldn't believe it was happening. As a mother of 2 boys, and you know, I couldn't believe that we used children as soldiers, and so that kind of became how I started. But what I find, and what we're committed to on Four Bridges, is more of a personal activism. People want to know, what can I do? You know, what can I as an individual do? I'm not, for my own self, in my offline life, I'm not comfortable in crowds. I don't like being in crowds. So standing out in the Occupy movement or whatever it is, any protest, I'm not comfortable there. So I don't put myself there. And I kind of felt guilty about that. But what can I do otherwise? And so what we do on Four Bridges is, like, we talk about, okay, there is digital activism and how you can partake in those things. And we work with organizations that, like, I can offer an internship with Amnesty and the Bill of Rights Defense Committee through Second Life. We're setting that up, but mostly it's about how can I make changes in my own life that cause that ripple? Because I think that the personal activism, the things that you do, the changes that you make in your personal life stand as a statement to anyone who knows you, and mostly to yourself. And it may give you that confidence to make that phone call to your senator, or to stand on the side of something else, even if all it does is make you vote.
So that ties back in with your avatar. So what you're saying is basically, if you have an avatar that is an extension, and that avatar is maybe a little bit more extroverted, and that avatar teaches your real life self that, yeah, you know, I can actually do more than I thought I could. It reverberates back into real behavioral change in the physical world, and you become sort of a good role model for the people that interface with you on a day-to-day basis, family, colleagues, and such.
Right, and there was an interesting study done at Stanford. They took students, and they had one group of students who read a website about deforestation, how it's affecting, you know, the earth and all of that. And then they had another group of students who actually went into a virtual reality simulation and cut down trees. They cut down, for every ream of paper, you cut down this certain amount of trees. And what they found was, these students, after they left that experiment, the ones who just read about it didn't really change their habits. The ones who actually cut down the trees reduced their paper usage. So it does have an effect. And Nikki and the Proteus paradox, it's the same thing. It's that same thing, because when I've been looking for my research, I've been looking at how our avatars affect our brains and the synapses, and they hit on the same. If I go surfing in Second Life, my brain doesn't, of course, you know, we recognize that my physical body didn't go surfing, but it's still hitting on the same synapses in the brain as if I had gone surfing myself. So it's much more integrated into my activities if I'm doing it in a virtual world, even if it's not something that relates to something I would do in my offline existence.
Mm-hmm. Something that you wouldn't even consider doing for whatever the reason is. Mm-hmm.
Exactly. But if once your brain thinks you've done it, then it's part of your repertoire, as it were.
Lady Di, in this context, is interesting. Lady Di, who is one of the protagonists in my upcoming film, is an avid surfer in Second Life. She also has 6 babies in Second Life, and it's a wonderful story. I'm so psyched that her story will, I hope, and I'm convinced, will change a lot of people's minds about having virtual babies, because that's another one of those things where people uniformly, I mean, at least in my interactions, say, wow, this is the creepiest crap that I've ever heard. Why do people have virtual babies? Her story will make you understand why people have that. I'm not going to go further into it now, but...
That's the way it works. That's the way it works in virtual reality and in real life. The second you meet someone who can explain it and who's nice and decent and normal, that's when you start understanding it.
Yeah.
Right.
I want to shift now to virtual reality and VR. What is fascinating, what we talked with Philip about last week, and also Joe, I actually bring you in. The next generation virtual worlds, and the train is headed very fast in the direction of photorealism. So you can already scan yourself if you have the cash lying around. With Dupe 3D is one of those companies. They have booths all over the world in some major cities. You can go there, you can get a scan, then you can plug that scan into, you got to clean it up a little bit, and then voila, you have an avatar, for example, in high fidelity, and I'm sure in Sansa there will be similar capabilities. You could do that in Second Life as well. Photorealism. Now, is photorealism something that we even want? And I'm not talking about the uncanny valley. I'm talking about, do we really...
Yes. Yes.
No.
Joe says,
No.
wait. Okay, let's start with Joe with yes.
Yes.
Yes versus no.
Oh, that's it. I'm done.
Okay, go ahead, Joe. You want a photorealistic avatar. Why?
Because I want full immersion. I want to be there. I want me to be there. I want to be in 1920s Berlin and completely forget, even if it's just for a couple of seconds, that it's all just pixels. I want to look around. I want to see real people. I want to see a real street. I want to be there. I want to travel back in time. I don't want floating texts. I don't want furries. I don't want, strange things popping up out of nowhere. I want to be in a realistic historical experience so I can just be there. Full immersion. And you can only have that if there is nothing, absolutely nothing that reminds you that it's fake.
Follow-up question before I go to Mile, but now we're talking about specifically also about the avatar. I want to ask if you would find it attractive to have a photorealistic avatar that is based on yourself, basically a scan.
I want to be me, and I very rarely change my avatar because I find it, I'm not that interested in how I look, but I do want her to look as much as real life me as possible. If I could scan myself tomorrow completely, I would put her in Second Life as my avatar. I wouldn't even Photoshop the scars and the bruises and the mustache away. I'd just be there, and I'd be me. And if everyone else would do it, I'd be very happy. But from a completely photorealistic virtual reality world, that's still a few years away.
Mm-hmm. Mile, you said no. Let me jump in just with one sentence. I say also kind of no for me, because I would find it too reductive if that were a requirement. Nobody's talking about a requirement, by the way. I just think, the culture is going a certain way. We can't really change that, although Silicon Valley is kind of putting their thumb on the scale quite a bit, pushing certain norms or norms to change. And I am, frankly, a little bit worried because I would find it incredibly reductive and kind of killing a kind of a really kind of rich, beautiful...
Obviously, you should always have the choice.
Right,
Obviously.
I believe in choice, definitely.
I mean,
Definitely have a choice.
Yeah, what's right?
Joe, you had your say. You want to be you. Go scan yourself and... Mile, what's your take on this question?
Well, because in exploring the avatar identity, you have to include the user's identity, obviously, because, and when I write my dissertation, I'm going to share what I believe are the components of the avatar. But, there are three functions. Well, there's probably more, but three functions of our avatar, according to a lot of the research I've done, and that is our now selves, who we are right now as users, our possible selves, and our hoped for selves. And what the avatar allows us to do is to play around with our aspirations, and it gives us an autobiographical narrative about this extension, this body extension that we don't get in this real life. You can. I can drop 50 pounds. I can add 50 pounds. I can change my hair color and that sort of thing. But basically, I am the same, and I certainly can't do it on a whim, So our avatar gives us these variable and experimental attributes that we can, and it gives us a greater sense of interactivity with our idealized selves.
We're talking about idealized, and I see where you're getting at. But in Second Life, we're accustomed to even a much richer environment than just even idealizing and dropping a couple of pounds here and there. We're talking about the tiny community. I spent a lot of time in the tiny community with this documentary, and Daisy Gator, who is an alligator, also a really good sci-fi writer, by the way, I want to add. But she says, the gator is her, and then Shyla is a gecko. And she said, before I found the gecko, I felt like, don't really belong here. And then I found the gecko, and I put a cape on the gecko, and I said, bingo, that's it. So people get sort of magnetically attracted to their identity until they find them, and then they stay. And that could be much more than just having in my case, where I did drop about 20 pounds in Second Life.
Right. And it also, with the avatar, we experience our body in different ways. Like some people experience it as something, my body is what I am, and others see it as something physical that belongs to me. And it's the same, we transfer a lot of that to our avatars. An interesting comment about this particular subject, when I asked about how important it is to people to be able to modify their avatars, quite a few in the comments mentioned that it was not so important to them going in, but it was important to the way others viewed them. That to me is interesting, because do we have this preset notion about who somebody is if they're walking around with a default avatar? And and does that, and obviously that carries over to how that avatar envisions themselves, so I do think that we see the possibilities in our avatar, and it's those possibilities that help us to present those, whatever those changes may be in our offline lives. So it's like we see the avatar as a mirror sometimes, but most of the time it's a projection.
It's a projection, and it's kind of a symbolism. And in the case, and you said, it could be some people define themselves over their body. Sometimes the body's kind of like, okay, well, I got to deal with it. In the case of physically disabled people, the body can be a severe limitation or even a burden.
One of my mentors, she's actually the chair on my committee. I absolutely adore her. She is disabled in her offline life. And I'll never forget, it was like 2008 or 2009. I brought her in because she had to come into grade she's very interested in technology, but she came in and we had a concert on The Sims, and her avatar was dancing, and she was crying because she hasn't been able to dance in years. And she just had this magical experience watching her avatar dance. To me, that was so strong It was just so strong about how we relate to our avatar and the experiences that our avatar has.
I guess we agree. We're coming to the end of the program already. I guess we agree that avatar diversity is very important. Now, a little critical look at the juncture that we're currently in. There's a big debate going on with the new generation worlds, high fidelity vis-a-vis Sansar, and then VR chat and some smaller ones. The avatar diversity, as we know, in Second Life is enormous, and the ability to customize and kind of dream up. I mean, that is really one of the strong aspects of Second Life, which is so underreported. Frankly, the avatar system is just frankly amazing, and I hear voices of people, oh yeah, but the bones, not enough bones, and Bento doesn't fix it. Frankly, who cares? You can do crazy stuff. You can be I don't know. You can be a little ball with some sticks coming out. You can even do prim stuff. Prim avatars with prim attachments, in my mind, are totally coming back. I mean, like they're like aesthetically. I think there could be a total resurgence. I think there could be a total hit even in the mainstream. But maybe I'm delusional. Anyway, long story short, right now, in Sansar, it's a little bit limited. They're working on a system. They're fully aware that it's important.
Yeah, 90% of the respondents said that being able to modify their experience is important to them. Being able to modify their avatar. Sorry about that. Yeah.
Right. So that's really important for the vast majority, right? Is there anybody who says, like, right, I don't care, I just always kind of pick it off the shelf and I'm done with it? Anybody say that? Yeah,
they do. Yeah, there are quite a few. One person even, 1%, I should say, even said that they haven't even changed their avatar from the time they started.
Really?
So, yeah. So, I mean,
I'm close to that.
Now, I'm thinking that a lot of those are, because I have, 3% of my respondents are griefers. And that's telling to me too, So, yeah, and they're less likely to change their avatars.
But wait a minute, does that mean they grieve in the default? Because the question here is, are people fine with, is it enough for people to pick something off the shelf? Because there's also debate that Joe and I had over the years, like when we think about like how could Linden Lab improve the experience, or the onboarding experience, and then increase retention and stuff like that. And one piece is the attractiveness of avatars. And I was just at Linden Lab 3 weeks ago, and Björn Linden was talking about the avatars that are coming, and they probably have really strong data that suggests that people stick around if the picking of the avatar, if there's a wide variety of high quality. And I'm not so sure, because, I'm not the norm in that sense. I just want a system where I can go completely nuts. It's not so much that I want to pick, I want to customize, right?
Right. Well, when I asked if they feel that Second Life provides enough default options for Avatar, the ones that said no, or the comments, they want better default animations. I am all for that. The way we walk when we get in there is they want, it is, and they want, I know, nobody wants that, and nobody wants to look like that.
How long have we had that walk in Second Life?
As long as I've been there, so 2007, I know.
How difficult is it to replace that?
They also want disability options. That was a big one. They want tiny options, and they want default genitals. I know. And that's the order, because I went through and I looked, and I had 116 comments, and these were the top 5 that people wanted from a default. Most people said it was easy to modify, and that it was extremely important to their experience of Second Life to be able to modify their avatars. So I do think those are really important.
I think you can. I modified so many avatars just for acting and for friends who I wanted to bring in, and the slider system I think is still pretty damn good. You can have a variety. So basically, but my question was that you did find that people want that modification. I guess my specific question is: are people okay with just picking it off the shelf and changing a jacket color, or do they really want full customization?
53% of all the respondents was very, and this is when they first joined Second Life. That was important. They said they were very concerned about their avatar's appearance and put a great deal of time into modifying it. Only 16% changed a few aspects and explored the options. But I chose, I changed minor things. That was less than 1%. I chose a default avatar and immediately began exploring Second Life. That was 6%. 6% did, and that's what I did. I just chose a default, and then I couldn't wait to get in. And I'm like Joe, I very rarely. I just got bento hands, and I've been playing with those, but I look ridiculous. I look ridiculous whenever I change anything on my avatar, so I pretty much stay the same. I love technology, have very little technological capability.
But you're not default, right? I mean, you're not.
No, I'm not default. No, after 10 years. But I think I was a default Av. I changed my clothes, but I was a default Av for probably 3 years.
Wow! Oh my God!
Well, it was so expensive. I didn't want, and I've been a student for 12 years and a single mother, so I didn't have the money to go in and change much of it. And I hate shopping in both lives. I hate shopping.
Oh my God! You're the two only women I know on the planet who hate shopping. Oh my God.
I hate shopping.
Me too.
Yeah, I also don't like changing the avatar.
No, I don't either. I don't want to. I like the bento, though, because I liked playing with it. It was like some new technology. But then I had to pull up that HUD, and it's got all these different colors and things. And it's like, who wants to do that?
This is the Outlier Radio Hour with Outlier Dupre and Miley Outlier and Joe Outlier Yardley. No. I mean, for me, I'm not gonna. I told that story so many times. I'm not gonna get into it. But I did spend quite a bit of time to customize my avatar. I met a woman who did glasses. I sent her real life pictures of my glasses. She modeled them. Watermelon Tokyo is her name. I've never met her, but that was to me the total game changer. That was even possible. Then I bought that suit off the shelf. It was only $300 Linden at the time. Anyway, we're at the end of the show. I want to ask one final question of you guys briefly. So, do you think who's gonna win? Who's gonna win the social VR race? Some of the existing players, are they doing stuff right or are they doing stuff wrong? Yeah.
Yes.
Mila, what do you?
I think the Second Life user. The Second Life community is going to win this race. I think that whoever wins the Second Life community wins the race because it's a stable community and we love it. I love it there. I love my Second Life. So, I like Sansar. I like the way it looks. I haven't been in high fidelity because, I'm supposed to be defending my PhD in December, so I haven't had time to do a lot of exploring. But whoever gets the Second Life community wins. And right now, I think it's going to be Second Life.
So we gotta wrap the show. I was gonna say in closing that Medhu, who's probably listening to the show, when we started taping this show, started streaming. Animesh is here. Animesh are animated non-player characters, and he is already animating his super awesome elephant that I used many times in several machinimas. So Medhu is working with Animesh, and Animesh is coming, and it looks fantastic. So I'm going to link to the live stream that he just put out while we were taping. There's obviously a sort of a content creator beta thing that is now becoming public. I was not privy to that. They're not inviting me to these things anymore. But so Second Life is growing. Second Life is adding features, and I mean we know that, but some people don't seem to know what's possible. So the Animesh thing is totally exciting to me because it adds non-player characters. So that's last word on that. Have a great weekend, everyone, and bye.
Auf Wiedersehen.
See ya.
The Drax Files Radio Hour with Joe Yardley is a weekly production of Basic Drax Entertainment. The show is supported by Time Portal, SL Artist, Warbug, Bay City You Know for Kids, 01 Heavy Industries Corporation, Extraordinary, Ionic, Maven Homes, Giza Creations, Botanical, Strawberry Sing, Abranimations, Eros Avatars, Caravel Design, The Cube Republic, What Next, Landscapes Unlimited, Fallen Gods Incorporated, and Death Row Designs. Thumbnail by Justin Esparza. Contact the show via Skype, Draxfiles, Avatar Draxfiles, or email radio@draxfiles.com.